According to my math, it is in fact a Friday. And I was going through my computer earlier today looking for photographs. I was looking for a particular photograph. And I've got photographs now on my computer in so many different places, hard drives, thumb drives, that once in a while I'm like, I can't remember where this picture would be. And so I've got backups and backups of backups, and I've actually got another computer that things can be on. And so I was poking around and I ran across this picture. Now, I have to tell you, there's a story behind this picture. And this is when I lived in Bad Axe, Michigan, was working at the radio station WLEW, which is still there, by the way. Right there, dead center in the middle of Huron County, up in the thumb of Michigan, right up about there. And what was happening in the photograph, besides the fact that I'm leaning on a sign that says Mud Creek, is that there was a guy named Keith Marshall who worked there, who did mornings. I did evenings, and then the newsman is Craig Routson. And I mentioned Craig about a year ago because he passed away recently. He retired and passed away shortly thereafter. I had mentioned, I did a video about him because he was my newsman. And he was a great guy. I liked him a lot, primarily because when I was on the air in the evening, he would often go out and cover city council meetings around the thumb. And quite often, if he wasn't there, I had to do the news. But if he was there, he would do the news. And so I remember a few occasions where it was like 7:59, and a car comes ripping in the parking lot, and Craig comes running in and goes, "How much time do I have?" And I yell back and go, 45 seconds. He'd say, "I got it." And he'd go grab a stack of stuff out of the news room and run into the newscaster's booth, close the door, and I'd go, boom, and he was there. And so he was doing that as a favor because he could have just dawdled the last 5 minutes and pulled in at 5 minutes after him, like, "Oh, sorry, I missed it." But I mean, he was doing that to be nice to me. And he'd been at the station for a very, very long time already by the time I got there in the early 1980s. And he, like I said, retired fairly recently and put in decades at that station. So one day we were sitting around talking, me and Craig and Keith, and Craig had a really nice 35 millimeter camera. And he said something about photographs and, memories that you'll have of this place because Keith left probably about 6 months later or so, and then I left a few months after that. And so it's kind of funny because I didn't have a nice camera. And Craig said, "Well, I'll tell you what," he goes, "if you buy the film, we'll go around, take a bunch of photographs, and then I'll just hand you the film, you can develop it, and boom, there you go." And I'm like, "Oh, cool." So we all jumped in. I believe it was Craig's car, and it may have been Keith's, though. These are the details that escape me. And I'm probably 20 or 21 in this picture. And we were driving around, and there was just things that I said I wanted to get pictures taken of. And I do not have copies of all of the photographs anymore. I misplaced them, lost them a long time ago. If I can find any of the other ones between now and when I post this video, I'll include them. But I know that, for instance, there used to be an old aircraft, an old jet, parked in front of the Huron County Airport. And I don't think it's there anymore, but I climbed up there and was standing on the wing for another photograph. Why not? And I also got my picture taken by the Welcome to Bad Axe sign. And in fact, I recreated that photograph with my Viper just a couple years ago, but it's a different sign. The sign I was in front of back in the 80s was the one that had all the signs on it. It was just a roadside sign, and it says, the Rotary Club and so-and-so, welcome to Bad Axe, whereas the one that I'm in front of with the Viper is a much more modern sign. But anyway, we're driving around, and I'm just, let's take a picture here, let's take a picture. And a lot of them were just pictures of stuff that I had, Craig take pictures of. And I seem to recall that one of them was a roadside sign that said it was the site of the world's largest, beef roast or something. Forgot the exact terms. I suspect the world record's been broken in the last 40 years. But the funny thing about this one, of course, was we were driving along, and there is the sign that says Mud Creek. Mud Creek. And I thought to myself, it's not like a town of Mud Creek. That'd be even more interesting. This is simply a sign of a geographical feature that there is a creek there, and they call it Mud Creek. And I don't know why, but it struck me as funny that you'd call it Mud Creek as opposed to giving it some more exotic name. But then you'd also put up a sign that says, just in case you're curious, this is Mud Creek. So I climbed up there, and I'm leaning on the sign. I'm, of course, wearing my aviator sunglasses because that's what a disc jockey would do in 1982 or 83. But the other thing is, and this is important, is the shirt I'm wearing. I would kill to have that. I don't have it anymore. I'd kill to have it because it's actually a football jersey. And I'm looking at it right now because I have it up on another monitor over there. And it actually says bad axe across the shoulders so that when you were, set, your opponent will look up and see your helmet and the words bad axe. It's a pretty cool idea. And I thought that was the coolest thing. And a guy who worked at the station, his name is John, recently graduated from Bad Axe High School. And I asked him, I said, is there anything that you can get me? This is Bad Axe. I'd love to have some Bad Axe paraphernalia. And he said, yeah, I'll get you something. And one day he walked in and he tossed me that. And it became a staple of my rotation that I had back then of clothing. But I'll tell you right now, it wouldn't fit me today. But like I said, I'm going through these photographs and I found that one. I'm like, oh, okay. And by the way, that's also my old haircut. It was in Bad Axe where I actually decided to cut my hair and go with slightly shorter hair, which is basically the transition from the 70s to the 80s that many people did eventually come around to. And I remember the first time I got my hair cut short was in Ann Arbor. I was visiting friends in Ann Arbor, and it was during the art fair in Ann Arbor. And there's all kinds of businesses that are running all kinds of specials and deals and sales and so on. And I was walking with my friends past a haircut place, and there was simply a woman standing there. And they had a haircut deal for the art fair. And somebody goes, Steve, you need a haircut. And I'm like, And the woman said the price, and I had the money. I'm like, sure, whatever. Went in and sat down, and she just did what she did. And so I'm guessing the photograph that we're looking at from Mud Creek is actually pre-Ann Arbor Art Fair haircut. But some of you are doing the math going, wait, Steve, are you telling us the haircut you got now is pretty much the same thing you've had for the last 40 years? There have been some variations in there. But I'm not going to get into the whole thing about the history of my haircut because I don't think that's that interesting. But I just love the photograph that I found. And it reminded me not just of the fact that there is a place called Mud Creek and that, that's where the creek crosses the road and it's Mud Creek. But also the day I spent driving around the Thumb just exploring with Craig Routson and Keith Marshall and hanging out and having a good time up there in Huron County. So that's the story of the Mud Creek photo. Hope you enjoyed it. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later.